This incident has been called the greatest hoax in American history. Did the moon landing really happen, or was it just a live broadcast show? The waving flag, the similar landscapes, the astronauts' confused memories. Every detail hints at a hidden truth behind the moon landing. Hello everyone, welcome to the World in 10 Minutes series. Today, let's talk about the mystery of the Apollo moon landing. This photo was taken on July 20th, 1969. It shows American astronaut Neil Armstrong stepping down from the Apollo 11 spacecraft, leaving the first human footprint on the moon. This was the first successful moon landing in human history. What's more, the whole landing process was broadcast live. According to U.S. statistics, 94% of American households watched the moon landing live. In other words, almost everyone with a TV tuned in. The broadcast covered everything in great detail. The spacecraft landing, planting the American flag, moving and running on the moon's surface, and the launch back into space. But there was one strange moment. The live signal cut off for 2 full minutes. What happened during those 2 minutes? Only the Americans might know the answer. To understand more, let's start from the beginning. What exactly was the Apollo moon landing program? The Apollo program was a series of crewed moon missions carried out by the United States from 1961 to 1972. Its purpose was to achieve human moon landings and study the moon's environment. It also served as a technical preparation for future space exploration and even interstellar migration. Of course, there was another big reason. At the time, the US and the Soviet Union were in an arms race. The Soviet Union had more advanced space technology. So, from that perspective, it's possible the US faked the landing to save face. According to NASA's public records, the US landed on the moon 6 times in total during those 11 years. The successful missions were Apollo 11, 12, 14, 15, 16, and 17. Only Apollo 13 experienced a failure. While flying about 32 kilometers from Earth, an oxygen tank on Apollo 13 exploded. Thanks to the astronauts' quick thinking and courage and close cooperation with ground control, they miraculously made it back to Earth safely. No lives were lost. So maybe it makes sense why Westerners are superstitious about the number 13. Not long after the moon landings, many people began to question whether it really happened, especially Americans who strongly criticized NASA. If all 6 moon landings were faked, then it wouldn't just be a small lie. It would be a deception of all humankind. So, is there any solid evidence that proves the moon landing was fake? Actually, quite a few clues and suspicious points have been raised. There was a former U.S. Navy officer named Bill Kaysing. He seriously doubted that the U.S. even had the technology to land on the moon. Later, he wrote a book compiling all his suspicions and evidence, bluntly titled, "We Never Went to the Moon." Then in 1978, a director named Peter Hyams made a satirical film called Capricorn 1. The film tells the story of a planned mission to Mars that fails to show real results after decades of research. So the higher-ups decide to fake the whole mission by filming it in a studio to cover up their failure and save face. It's almost like the movie was spelling out, "The Apollo mission failed," in the end credits. So, was the Apollo moon landing real? To this day, opinions are still divided. But globally, more people actually believe it was faked, and some of them have found pieces of evidence to support the idea that the moon landing was staged and filmed somewhere on Earth. Let's take a look at some of the most famous examples. Evidence 1. The waving flag. In the Apollo footage, Armstrong and the other astronauts are seen planting the American flag into the moon's surface. It's a symbolic moment. But eagle-eyed viewers noticed something strange. The flag appeared to wave in the air. Some might say, so what? But don't forget, there's no atmosphere on the moon. That means there's no air. It's almost a complete vacuum. In a vacuum, the flag should stay perfectly still, like a stiff sheet of metal. There's no way it could flutter or move like it did. So, some say this proves the landing didn't happen on the moon at all, but on Earth, where air and wind exist. NASA's explanation: they said the astronauts had equipment with them, like oxygen generators and other gear. These machines produced vibrations that were transferred to the flag. That's why it looked like it was waving. The flag's waving was actually caused by vibrations. Although this explanation sounds a bit far-fetched, it's hard to argue against it. After all, we can't exactly recreate a vacuum environment like the moon's to test it ourselves. Second piece of evidence: the sea rock. Careful viewers noticed that in the Apollo landing footage, there was a rock on the ground with what looked like the letter C written on it with a marker. That discovery caused a huge uproar. People started accusing NASA of using props and forgetting to remove the markings. And it all got broadcast live. This time, NASA's explanation was even less convincing. They insisted the landing was real and said they had no idea what the mark was. Just because it looks like a C doesn't mean it is a C, they claimed. But many netizens didn't buy it. To be honest, that's a pretty hard explanation to believe. The third piece of evidence is even more shocking: a deathbed confession from an American astronaut. Before passing away, a former American astronaut recorded a video confession. He claimed that the Apollo mission never actually went to the moon. He said he was given top-secret orders to participate in a classified operation. He wasn't the only one involved, but no one knew who else was part of the mission. They were all taken to a room and asked to sign a non-disclosure agreement, promising never to reveal any details of the mission, or they'd be charged with treason. Afterward, they were loaded into sealed armored vehicles and driven for hours to an unknown location. When they finally arrived, they saw a shocking scene. Hundreds of heavy trucks were dumping sand and dirt onto the ground. There were huge lighting rigs, construction crews, and armed guards everywhere. They were then asked to put on spacesuits and perform moon landing actions, planting flags, walking, running, driving vehicles, and so on. Directors and camera crews were there filming everything. The astronaut said that ever since that day, he had lived with deep guilt. Everyone treated him as a national hero, but only he knew that they were just a group of helpless, second-rate actors. Later on, this scene was even mocked in a James Bond movie. After this revelation came out, more and more people began to believe that the Apollo moon landing was staged. Many internet users even started searching for the filming location. But honestly, NASA would never let you find it. Fourth piece of evidence: why hasn't humanity returned to the moon? Someone once asked NASA a very pointed question. If you landed on the moon 6 times over 40 years ago, why can't you do it now? It doesn't make sense. In theory, technology only advances with time. How could it go backward? If you could do it back then, why not now? NASA responded by saying, "It's not that we don't want to go back, it's just too expensive." They claimed that a single moon landing cost over $100 billion at the time, and 6 missions nearly wiped out the U.S.'s World War II earnings. Even more puzzling, NASA admitted that much of the moon landing technology was later destroyed because it was deemed no longer useful. So now, not only is there no money, but there's no technology either. As soon as they said that, people online were outraged. Many believed this was just another cover-up. Some even joked, NASA isn't even good at lying anymore. Fifth piece of evidence: the composition of moon rocks. NASA once released photos claiming the rocks were brought back from the moon. Scientists analyzed their composition, and the results showed that the rocks were almost identical to rocks found on Earth. As soon as that news broke, netizens had a new reason to doubt. Are you kidding us? The moon is 380,000 kilometers away from Earth, and the rocks there are exactly the same as ours? It's obvious you never went to the moon. You just picked up some Earth rocks and tried to fool us. The funniest part? NASA didn't even respond to this one. Maybe they couldn't come up with an excuse. There's also another odd incident that indirectly suggests the moon landing was faked. When China's Chang'e 6 successfully brought back lunar soil, the US was the first to ask for a sample. Wait, if the US went to the moon 6 times decades ago, why don't they already have lunar soil? That's like Apple releasing the iPhone 18, then suddenly asking someone for a pager. This move felt like an obvious giveaway. So, looking at everything as a whole, the Apollo moon landing is filled with suspicious signs. Whether it's the logic, the motive, or the evidence, they all seem to point in one direction. The moon landing may have been staged in a studio. But if that's true, maybe we should be excited. Why? because that means China might actually become the first country to truly send humans to the moon. And when that day comes, the legend of Chang'e flying to the moon might finally become a reality. I know you might want to hear more, so don't worry. In the next video, we'll continue exploring the secrets behind the moon landing. The moon. Why does it always show the same face to Earth? Is there really an alien base on the far side of the moon? Why did the Apollo mission suddenly stop? Hello everyone, welcome to the World in 10 Minutes series. Today, we're going to talk about the far side of the moon. But before we dive into today's topic, today's video is actually a follow-up to a previous one. In the last episode, we discussed some suspicious points about the Apollo moon landings. Many of you shared very interesting thoughts in the comments. I read each and every one of them, so today we'll continue exploring some of the mysteries surrounding the moon. As we all know, the moon is located about 380,000 kilometers away from Earth. It's Earth's only natural satellite and plays a vital role in maintaining our planet's balance. Without the moon, Earth would be fully exposed to outer space. Things like meteors, asteroids, and other space debris would crash straight into Earth once they enter its gravitational field. It's kind of like the Moon Shield project shown in the movie Moon Man, where the moon acts as a shield to protect Earth. Besides that, losing the moon would also mean losing our tides. No more high or low tides. This would drastically disrupt the planet's ecosystems. Animal migration and species evolution would fall into disarray. Extreme weather would become more frequent around the globe, and even Earth's rotation speed would be affected. So, given how important the moon is, many people might wonder, is its existence just a coincidence? Could it have been deliberately placed there by a higher civilization to protect humanity? That's why, since the 1970s, landing on the moon has become a major milestone in mankind's journey to explore space. But why are we so determined to go to the moon? First, because it's close. Reaching other planets in the solar system would take us years. Second, because the moon itself is full of mysteries and unanswered questions. So today, let's focus on the strange things about the moon. Whether it's day or night, we always see the same face of the moon. But logically, all celestial bodies have both a rotation period and an orbital period. A rotation period is how long it takes for a body to spin around once on its axis. An orbital period is how long it takes to revolve around its parent body. These two periods are rarely the same. Too many variables are at play. Yet, this almost impossible coincidence occurs with the moon. Its rotation period and orbital period are exactly the same, 27.3 Earth days. That's why the moon appears to be still, always showing the same side to Earth. We can never see the far side of the moon from Earth. Unless something massive changes in the solar system, the moon's far side will remain hidden from us forever. There are many theories about this. One suggests that the far side of the moon is completely covered in craters. This theory has a basis in physics. The larger the celestial body, the stronger its gravitational pull. Take the sun, for example. It's the biggest object in the solar system and it's a star. So all the other planets revolve around it. Most meteorites aren't very large in size, so 99% of them get pulled in by the moon's gravity before they ever reach Earth. As a result, they crash into the far side of the moon instead. For thousands of years, the moon has been silently protecting humanity in this way, saving us who knows how many times. But there's another theory. The reason we can't see the far side of the moon is because a higher civilization lives there. They're quietly observing and monitoring human beings. At first, this sounds like something out of a science fiction fantasy. But is it really impossible? If we think about it more carefully, could all of this be just too much of a coincidence? In the last video, we talked about the Apollo moon landing, but there were still some details we didn't mention. Let's assume for now that Apollo did land on the moon. During the live broadcast of the landing, astronaut Neil Armstrong suddenly switched his communication to the medical channel. This channel was private. It was meant for reporting personal discomfort like, "My heart feels strange," or "My leg is hurting," etc. But what NASA heard was completely unexpected. Oh my God! There are huge things out there, just on the other side of the crater. They're watching us. Almost immediately, NASA cut off the live broadcast signal. That explains the 2-minute signal loss during the moon landing footage. Once this story spread, many people became even more convinced that there really is another, more advanced civilization on the moon. So what exactly did Armstrong see? Was it true? Later, the US ran an experiment. A man named Ingo Swann participated. He was part of a secret program in 1972 known as Project Stargate. Swann was officially recognized by the US government as someone with psychic abilities. His specific ability was called remote viewing. In Chinese, we call it clairvoyance. The US asked Ingo Swann to use his powers to see what was really on the far side of the moon. After NASA gave him the coordinates, he entered a trance-like state, similar to hypnosis. About 3 minutes later, he said, "I see buildings on the far side of the moon. They look like towers. And there are humanoid beings inside, moving around." A moment later, he said with surprise, "They seem to have noticed us. They know we're watching them. They're looking at me." As soon as they heard that, NASA immediately ended the experiment. If what Swann saw was real, then it's very likely he and Armstrong saw the same alien civilization. Some might laugh and say, "Psychic powers? Are you serious? Sounds like something from Marvel." But human beings with special abilities, we can talk about that in another video. There's also another popular theory in recent years. Human beings may just be an experiment created by a higher civilization. They placed us on Earth, watching us but not interfering. And the moon, it's their observation station. As we mentioned earlier, all of the moon's physical properties seem perfectly designed to monitor or protect the Earth. The strange things that happened during the moon landing also suggest there's a high chance that life may exist on the moon. If that's really the case, it would completely turn our understanding of the world upside down. It reminds me of the Universe 25 experiment we talked about before. Maybe we're not so different from those mice. Every year, more and more conspiracy theories and wild ideas about the moon appear. But we'll just have to wait and see. After all, this celestial body that's closest to us, one day, humanity will conquer it.